Hi, and welcome to BTV, Boise State in the Community, and I'm your host, Ryan Uria. This is a service learning classroom experience oriented around bringing in people from Boise State's community and talking about the positives that we would like to showcase here in our service learning program. And my guest today exemplifies that. She has over 20 years of teaching experience. She's worked as a consumer analyst at a software company in Houston, and now she focuses on experiential learning in her classrooms. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Joanna Gabler. Joanna.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So understanding that you got your start, like in terms of your studies, you focused on psychology and then as well as marketing, which kind of came in later in your career. How did you come to that marriage?
Well, when I was in graduate school, I was in social psychology, which is the study of how the individual behaves in relation to a group. And so halfway through my program in graduate school, they told me, there's no jobs in psychology for you. So you need to choose a minor that is an area where you will find your employment. And so some people in the program looked at statistics as a minor, some people looked at public health, and then me and one other person, we thought, oh, well, over there in the School of Business, they use psychological theories and apply it to the marketplace. And so we knew marketing did that. And so once we started taking marketing courses, then we realized that was true. And sure enough, after I graduated, I just started my jobs in marketing and kept my jobs in marketing. And so, but my first love is psychology.
Would you say you got into that like love for psychology because you said it's about like studying the individual in the broader society? Do you consider yourself like an outlier in broader society?
Probably.
Yes.
Probably, because I've had a very random career path, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So
yes, and
yeah.
Considering random, there's a connection between Dallas Buyers Club and your dissertation when you were getting your master's degree?
Yes. So this was the late 90s, and since I had to figure out a topic to do my dissertation on, I had to figure out something that combined psychology and marketing.
Yeah.
So at the time I was working on a federally funded grant where we would go into high schools and do longitudinal studies asking about drug use behaviors and sexual behaviors. And so I was trying to figure out a way to make that work, and then I determined, well, the AIDS crisis was big at the time. And so there was a lot of advertising around condoms, but it was all fear appeals about, if you don't use condoms, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so I thought that condom research would be good to do with the marketing spin of purchasing condoms, and what are all the barriers and emotions and strategies and thoughts surrounding that to determine what makes it easy or difficult to buy condoms. Because at the time, you could only get them at a store, in person at a store, not online.
Yes, and so now that you can buy them online, is there a difference in terms of how you would approach them in terms of embarrassment?
Yes, so embarrassment, previous research has shown people still feel embarrassed when purchasing certain products online, and only because they're judging themselves. And so they still feel embarrassed only for themselves, not because they're being, exposed in public and they can see their behavior. But so I'm trying to figure out what sorts of products are still embarrassing to buy, considering we've come a long way, in store and online. Is that list different? What is embarrassing to buy? Okay,
so that's what you're doing right now. And then before that, how did you come out of your dissertation? I understand there's a connection to another movie, James Bond. You went to Bond University?
Oh yes, James Bond. Okay, so when I was graduating, I wanted to move overseas, and so I had applied to all these universities all around the world, and so I decided on Australia, and they only had one private university that was only about 10 years old at the time, and so it was Bond University, and so I started my marketing teaching at Bond University in Australia. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Would you say that you were still thinking about embarrassing products in your teaching, or was it oriented towards a very specific curriculum?
So embarrassing products, I sort of got involved in other types of research because I worked with people at Bond University. So we studied, well, we also continued that condom purchase research, but then we added in some drinking behaviors in there. So we were studying college students, and so we just sort of decided what behaviors to study. And so I expanded that a little bit, but then I left that research behind once I came back to the US and I got some jobs, software company and then advertising agency. So I left the research behind. So it's only recently that I picked it back up again.
Gotcha. So you mentioned a software company and an ad agency, and
Yes.
It seems like most of your research is pretty creative towards psychology and then the marketing of that psychology.
Right.
How did you try to stand out and be creative in such a very narrowed field, which is advertising?
Yes. So software was hard because all we did were feature function studies of software over mainframe and distributed systems. So really exciting.
Exciting, yeah.
Yes. So it was hard to be creative there. I just had to hone my research skills and just focus on that. And so after I left that job, I went to the ad agency where, talk about the most creative place in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
working at an advertising agency is, you can really, really see creativity come to life and figure out the strategy behind it. And so I really liked working on that strategic piece, that research piece, and then handing over those insights to the creative team. And they're the ones who know best how to bring that to life.
Yes. Would you consider yourself a creative or more analyst?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I'm able to come up with ideas, I would say. I am an idea person.
Gotcha.
But there has to be strategy behind it. So I can do both, but I leave it to people who have, visual skills and things like that to really take it far.
Gotcha. And it seems like your research niche would be like the college student area. Would you say you were a typical college student when you were going through that whole scenario?
Yes, I would say so. Because I felt like college years were the best years of my life, because that's the time when you're truly on your own. You have to manage everything, to manage your social life, you have to manage your education. And so it's just, there's so many new ideas and opportunities that present themselves, and it's what you make of it. And so for me, I wanted to take advantage of everything that I had to capitalize on. And so I feel like, with forming relationships with professors and then also maintaining long-term relationships with friends, it's the best money well spent as far as I was happy to spend 10 years paying back my student loans.
Yeah.
I was not angry about it. I felt like it was money well spent.
Interesting. That's I'm sure not a lot of students
I
maybe
know.
relate to that.
I know. I really was happy every time I'd send in that check. I felt like I really got a good value. So
that's cool. Do you think that helped you in keeping in the professor realm? Because obviously you branched out, but then you came back to teaching. Do you think there's part of you that would rather be a college student now, even though you're not of college age?
No, I appreciate college students because it's a time to just learn and a time to consider all these ideas and to question and all of these things. And so I think the university is the best workplace. I've been in different workplaces with cushy offices and everything, but I wouldn't trade it for a university. I really think this is just the best workplace. It's just, I don't know, it is. But a lot of times I would think that trying to form connections between generations, this is the best place to do it.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a connection between how you manage your students and then how you manage your your research, I would say? Because that's a...
Yeah, that's the tough part, because whenever I prepare for my classes, I always look to see what the headlines are that day, what's going on with anything related to marketing, and there's always something going on. So when I come into class, I want to talk about what's going on that day or that week. And discuss how it relates to what we're talking about. So I spend time doing that, but then I need to spend time doing research, and so it's a balancing act, but I always want to feel prepared for my classes when I go to class. So usually that takes priority. And if I run out of time for the research, it's a bummer, but I just have to make it up somehow.
Absolutely. Would you, obviously that's part of the job, but would you say that you would research those things anyway, considering?
Yes, because I like talking about it.
Yeah.
And I just find that even in a social setting, if you bring up the topic, everyone has something to say about it, and everyone has their own story and their own take on it. And so I like hearing about people's ideas, because I create my online surveys to answer those questions in my research, but I don't get to talk face to face with those people. I'd rather, it'd be great if I could just have a million conversations and then
absolutely.
use that as a data point, but it's just me. So.
Yeah, it seems like being that a value of yours, I think embarrassing products is probably a good choice in terms of conversation starter. Do you think?
Right.
Yeah. Do you think that went into your decision making?
I always think it's funny, just because I come from social psychology, when you sort of break social norms, how do people react?
Interesting.
And that fascinates me. For example, if you go into an elevator, what would happen if you faced the other way? Everyone would be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They'd think it's strange, but it's this simple act, and it's just breaking a social norm. We're supposed to face forward in an elevator. And so if I start talking about embarrassing products, sometimes people walk by my office, and the stuff we talk about is usually not discussed in an office, but they know that's what they're going to get if they walk by my office and start talking to me about it. You can't, I don't know, it's all up for grabs. And so once you remove that embarrassing aspect of it, and it's just a conversation, and so then people start to relax a little bit. But it is kind of breaking a social norm, because you're supposed to talk about certain topics at work and don't deviate from that.
For sure,
but
yeah, so I mean, the way I see it, academia seems to almost exist in this very boring realm, and you're definitely bringing it to an entertaining light. But would you say amongst your peers, is there some sort of like devaluing of your research because it is quote unquote not normal or academic?
I've had people question the publishability or the usefulness of it. And so the whole academic game is based on how much you can publish in the academic journals. But my criticism is that the research has to have some usefulness to marketers that are marketing these products, and the retailers that are selling these products, and people designing the online e-commerce sites to sell the products, and the advertising around it. And so I feel like it's useful, but if I publish it in an academic journal, only academics read academic journals.
Yeah, it sits in like this.
And so I would much rather somehow get my research out there to be with actual marketers who are working for these brands, or the retailers, or just get them involved a little more. And so that's not the traditional way to do it, but you know, I've never really been about that. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Understanding that you're not in the traditional perspective, like, do you think that was maybe a catalyst or a driver to wanting to go out into maybe the private sector outside of academia, understanding that you still like academia?
Yes. And so the jobs that I had in the private sector, I always made sure that there was some element to where I could work with different teams, and making sure that there's always something that's really stimulating, and something where I'm really critically thinking and applying my skills, and really trying to come to solutions that mean something. And so it's a very fast-paced world, and you know, in your meetings, you're getting stuff done, you're discussing these things, but you always have an eye for action and results. And so that's how it actually works. And so we don't have the time to sit around and theorize and discuss things to death. And so we just have to get to those insights, and then how do those insights translate into the strategy that we're going to use to sell the product. And so I like that aspect of it, in terms of throw it out there, and then was I right? Did this work?
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to go to break, and then we'll talk more about those results and how she gets those results with an invisible friend to help with her research. Thank you.
My name is Brody Cavatayo from San Diego, California, and I play for the Boise State Hockey Club. I like build myself up, so I like build my confidence up, tell myself that like the other team is basically, they're not worth my time and I should be out there. The Boise State Hockey Club is awesome. I love the boys. The boys are super cool. The coaching staff and the booster club are awesome as well. I think we have a good chance. We move the puck really well. We do most of the little things right. We just got to tweaking up some of our aspects a little bit. I feel we'll have a good turnout this year for sure.
Hello, and welcome back to Boise State in the Community. We left off the break talking about results and how Dr. Joanna Gabler would prefer results rather than just like sitting her research in a bubble amongst academics. And so now we're going to talk about how she gets to those results. So I wanted to ask about your accountability buddy that you self-titled it. So do you have like research parameters in which like you need to have a certain amount of research hours each semester, or is that just put on you?
It's put on me. It's an expectation, so it's part of the job. And so it's up to you to manage your time to make forward progress,
Gotcha.
to move things along. And so since we are given so much freedom to manage our own time, I tend to have this habit of reading as much as I can. Any article written on the topic, I want to read it. And I have this fear of missing out on any article that might be talking about that topic that I haven't read yet. So I need, forward movement. And so if I can't do that for myself, then I need to be accountable to someone who's going to meet with me once a week and saying, so what have you done with your research this week? What are some concrete actions that you've taken? And so that helps me, because otherwise I would be just reading articles and not making any progress. So it really helps.
Yeah, for sure. And who fits this role? An actual person, or is this?
Yes, it's the chair of our department.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so he was the one who suggested it, and he said he did it for someone else. And then when I came in early this semester, I said, I think I'd like to take you up on that service because I think it would really benefit me. So that's what we do once a week now.
Cool. So like, your title is kind of interesting. It's a visiting assistant professor, but you've been other titles in the past, because I think you've been working since 2014, right?
Yes, and so I came here to Boise State as an adjunct.
Yes.
So I started off with one class, and then that moved into a full-time lecturer position where I was teaching 4 classes. And then, so changes within our department, that's why job titles change. And so then there was this opening, but it was a little bit temporary as a visiting assistant professor. Usually that title is reserved from someone coming from out of state who's just temporarily here. But that just happened to be the title. And so if it's my 3rd title here, that's fine.
Gotcha. Do you pay attention to the politics around Boise State in terms of like titles shifting and stuff like that, or do you just try to focus on you?
It's pretty well defined and has been in academia, but because I don't fit neatly into a role, I've always had to be comfortable with being flexible and just adapting to changes. And so, and that's fine with me. A lot of people need predictability and structure and things like that, but I'm comfortable with just sort of being in a role where I'm needed. Yeah.
What experiences have you had that led to you being comfortable in the unknown or the?
Oh gosh, well, I guess living overseas, living in big cities, living in small cities, being in different jobs, a lot of different jobs where different management styles, different expectations, parenthood, that can make you very flexible. And so all of these things from different parts of my life.
Sure.
And so I just, some people get freaked out when, who moved my cheese? But for me, it's, it's over there. Okay, so that's fine.
Awesome. How do you try to translate that into your classroom?
Into my classroom, so I don't start out with an agenda for that time. And so some people like to say, well, we're going to spend time talking about these things in this order. So for me, I want to start talking about something, but if the discussion goes a certain way, I'm not going to cut it off.
Sure.
I want to keep it going until it naturally ends. And so I make sure that I do watch the time and I carve out time, say, for group projects, for the groups to meet in the classroom. But other than that, I just like to discuss a topic, but then ask people for their input. And if that takes longer, that's fine. So it might drive some people crazy, but
that's how you would like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So describe the experiential learning aspect of your classes.
Okay, so for marketing communication, I have a service learning partner where a nonprofit locally, Jesse Tree, which is an organization that helps prevent eviction to prevent homelessness. And so they are the part of the equation where if someone is in danger of being evicted, then they will step in and help. And so they're the only organization that does this. So they have a very small staff, and we asked if they would like help with their marketing communications. Cool. And so we have teams, 11 teams working on marketing communications plan. Oh, wow. So they are proposing perhaps a change to the name of the organization, a slogan change, how that messaging would be created and would come to life over social media, their website, event marketing, public relations, newsletter, things like that. So speaking with one voice, creating messaging to drive awareness.
Awesome. And how did you come to this one nonprofit?
So I work with the service learning department here at Boise State.
Okay.
And so sometimes I find organizations on my own, and sometimes they help me find them. And so last semester I got Corpus Christi House, which is a day shelter for the homeless, on my own.
Oh, gotcha. But
for this semester I needed help, and when they proposed Jesse Tree, I saw a good link there to continue this work on homelessness.
Awesome, that's great. We're gonna go to the break, actually.
Okay.
And then coming up next, we'll talk about how I am the perfect example of a case study, as well as maybe some secrets about Albertsons. So stay tuned.
Moving onto campus my first year was a really, really big deal. It was the first time out of the house, first time living with so many people that I don't quite know. And so preparing for that, one of the first things I did was obviously look at the floor plan, see what I could fit into my room, what I should bring, what I should not bring. And then the next step was really money. So thinking about how I was going to pay for it, considering on-campus jobs, of which I've had a few, and it definitely helped in being able to pay rent and being able to live on campus and be a student effectively.
So one thing that was great for parents is just one inclusive payment. We really enjoyed that, made it very easy. But as well, having someone here to help her out, having the support services was big for us. Knowing that there was resident advisors, resident directors, and also academic offerings for her at the residence hall was huge. Knowing that she'd be taken care of financially and as well as being very helpful to her to succeed at school.
Hi, and welcome back to Boise State in the Community. Before the break, we were talking about how the experiential learning aspect of Dr. Joanna Gabler's classes came to be, and then we teased about how I could possibly be a good case study for her research, and so I think we're going to mostly talk about that. But before that, so you were able to go on a tour to the secret Albertsons on Park Center, is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
So there's a blank storefront on Park Center,
Yep.
and Albertsons uses that to set up a store for the vendors to come in and look at and see how their merchandise is being displayed. So they can even look at big display cases and make their choices for that. But it's almost like a store that's set up, but the average consumer doesn't see it. And you have
Yeah.
to go through this lobby with security to get there. So
Yeah.
I call it the super secret Albertsons.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I actually went and took pictures of it because I live near there, and just from taking pictures of the security guard came out and was like,
Yes.
yeah, was like, why are you here?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So it was interesting, but it's just right adjacent to the regular Albertsons, but
Right.
no one really sees it. So speaking of that regular Albertsons, I was in a situation where I went to that Albertsons, or needed to go to that Albertsons, because of I thought I came about a scenario in which I needed a certain product. See, and it's hard for me to even say the product.
Yes.
Yes. So in order to do that, I had to invite my friend first and foremost.
For moral support.
Exactly. So I got him there, and finally we drove to to Albertsons, walked in, pretended we didn't know where the aisle was. Yes, and then once we got there, we saw that elderly man was looking for some sort of other item. I think it was a laxative, and they happened to be in the same aisle.
The embarrassing products aisle.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
all in there. Yes.
Yeah. And then, so I needed to buy this package of condoms, and I waited there for about 25 minutes trying to figure out if I should do it, like pacing back and forth. And then finally, my friend was like, let's just do it. And then once I did, I needed to go to self-checkout. And then understanding that even though I was at self-checkout, I still needed to buy some sort of drink to hide the fact that I was buying this. How would you rate my...
So there were several strategies at play there.
Yes.
And so you, like the average consumer, figures out ways to alleviate your embarrassment by doing these strategies. And so when you get to the aisle, then you want to be sure that no one is there.
Gotcha.
And you almost prepare yourself for this task by thinking about which brand am I going to get?
Yep.
Do I know the identifying package characteristics of that brand so that I can quickly identify it, quickly choose it, and get it into my cart? Because you don't want to be caught standing there looking, mulling it over, and so taking it and placing it in your cart, but you don't want the one item in your cart.
Yes.
So the hiding with other products,
Yeah.
and we even did shopping basket analyzer studies to determine what are the most likely products to be bought with this.
Oh, interesting.
And so, so hiding, and then also seeking out, so before there was self-checkout, usually consumers would seek out a cashier of the same gender,
Okay.
and about the same age.
That makes sense.
And so, and try to quickly complete the transaction, but it's self-checkout, that hopefully alleviates that. But in any case, but you spend a lot of time pacing back and forth, so maybe that drew more attention.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm probably more of a paranoid person in
Right.
that. But I even looked up online, like, what is the most trusted brands? Because when I'm there, I don't even want to read.
Okay, because it would take too much time.
Exactly, because then I'm sitting there very intently looking at the items.
Yes, and your anxiety level is
So we went
increasing.
to a different aisle, looked it up, and then came back.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, and so brands need to know that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep. So
Okay.
hopefully that's food for thought there.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. And do you think, obviously I could have bought those on Amazon or something.
Right.
Would you say there's a big difference in terms of people who do that online?
Yes, because there are planners. So there are people who say, okay, I can wait 1 to 3 days to receive these packages. And because of the way that Amazon does it, they're all just the plain brown boxes anyway.
Yeah.
So that's still discreet enough. But other people who are more situational use, they can't wait 1 to 3 days. And so you have to go into a store. You have to. And all these other things are at play. So really the online purchasers are more different personalities. They're more planners. And so they have the luxury of having time to wait for that to arrive. Whereas everyone else just situational, you know, as the situation arises, then you have to go to the store.
Exactly.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I fit into the spontaneous category for that one.
Yes, so it's still relevant to talk about in-store purchases, and people can't say, oh, well, no, you can buy it online. That takes care of everything. You still have to go into a store for a big segment of people.
Do you think that'll be the same way, say, 10 years from now?
I still think so.
Okay.
I still think so. For any occasion, you know, whether you're picking up medication or things, you have to have stores. You have to have these brick and mortar stores to go into.
So considering the online though, even if they are planners, what if, say, not saying that my parents are against these things, but certain parents, what if I were to purchase that, open the box on Amazon, or my parents are like, oh, Amazon, I bought something off of Amazon as well, and then open it up. Is the embarrassment lead inside the household as well, or is it just in public?
Oh, inside the household too.
Yeah.
So it's all on how you appraise yourself. And so if you feel like you're judging, others are not judging you, but you're judging yourself.
Yep.
And is that consistent with how you see yourself or not? Then that's going to make you privately embarrassed. So there's public embarrassment and then there's private embarrassment.
And is there different ways in finding those certain embarrassments? Like, do you do surveys for each type of embarrassment?
You can run experiments. It's really hard to get to because you want to say, well, report on how you felt in the past.
Gotcha.
So you can do that, or you try to set up some experiment to determine how do you feel right now. But those are still kind of artificial. And so really we're just relying on people to honestly report on how they felt, their level of embarrassment.
And so back to the secret Albertsons, the way in which the reason they have that is to try to like implement the research that you do, which is trying to see how to better like place these products, correct?
Well, when I went down that aisle, because of course when I went there, I just wanted to, I found the adult diapers and I went down that section because that's also an embarrassing product. So I was just asking the Albertsons person who was with me, I said, so is this the way it actually looks? And he says, no, this is a little bit different. We're testing things out to see if we group them by color or if we group them by feature of the product. And so they wouldn't make those decisions. They really rely on their vendors. And so kind of their vendors, those brands kind of rule as far as how they like to see it set up.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Joanna. Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. And I hope it's been fun for the viewer as well. Before we leave, I would like to thank my producer, Brady Grew, my director, Sabrina Surgott, and the studio technician, Ray Mullins. This has been Boise State in the Community. I'm your host, Ryan Uria. Have a great night.